Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another chapter of Experiencer Interviews. And today we have Alexander John Tulloch today, coming to us from North Carolina. Alexander is a Lyran prince from the royal house of Nicholas. Due to his royal lineage, multiple extraterrestrial races have contacted Alex to share information and to engage in conversations about our galactic history, current events, and details about their existence. Alex has been documenting his contact communications since 2013. In 2019, Alex was directed by the Lyrans to share his information with the world. Alex founded the Lyran Connection and in March 2020 launched a live show on Facebook where he shares his direct and unedited extraterrestrial contact with his viewers. His dedication to his mission has resulted in the completed compilation of 4 manuscripts of data featuring dozens of ET races, which will be released soon for publication. Alex lives in North Carolina with his wife and 3 sons. Find out more about Alex at thelyranconnection.com. So, Alex, thank you so much for coming on today.
Hey, thanks for inviting me, man.
So, yeah, we've talked a bit briefly, and you've got a really good story. So, could you get into what happened to you as a kid, and go on? Let's go on from that.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know really about some of the back end, so this will be great to go into some of this. And it'll be in the book 3 that'll be coming out as well. I was born on Long Island, New York. A normal 7.5 pound boy, Port Jefferson, Long Island, New York. I lived there until about 6 years old, and my mom separated from my father, and we moved to New Jersey for a year before we wound up in New Mexico, Albuquerque, New Mexico, living on Kirtland Air Force Base with my uncle until my mom got settled. And I would go back in the summertime to go back to Long Island, New York to see my dad. And during those times, of course, any kind of breakup in the family, those are troubling times. But to me, I didn't really see any of that because it happened so when my parents were so like when I was 3 years old. So I didn't witness any kind of behaviors other than I'd see my dad in the summer for 3 months in Long Island, and I'd go in the woods. There was a lot of acres of woods, and we had a boat, so we'd go out in the water. I spent a lot of time on the land, and then in the winter and the fall, I'd be back in the desert. And I would experience that kind of life. And what was starting to happen is, my contact that I started receiving data or any kind of information wasn't until 2013. But during my younger years, before I even started connecting the dots, I did have what you would call sleep paralysis. Around my birthday, I would literally be laying in bed. I would be in a dream. I would see a black and white abacus and they would be sliding on those rails going back and forth. I would actually feel fear at that time, and I would feel pressure, and I would think the only thing I could think as a child was like, I'm about to die. I would wake up, but I couldn't move. I would be crying, like streaming tears, and I would try to open my mouth to scream my mom's name, I couldn't talk. And it would take me hours to be able to break free to go down the hall to get my mom. And sometimes, because when I went to bed when I was little, when this first started happening, I would go to bed early, 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. So there would be company over sometimes still when this was going on. And the weird part about it is I would know it's coming on because it would only be around my birthday. When I was laying in bed, or like I was going to bed, I remember this would happen. I would feel like, you ever get that sensation where when you're going to bed and you feel like you're falling backwards or something like of that nature? It would feel like that, but then I would feel that pressure that happens later on in the dream, that all I'd see is the abacus, and I feel the pressure. I would feel that sensation, and that would cause instant fear. Like I knew I was going to have that experience. And because it wouldn't be all year round, right? It would only be around my birthday. That continued on until, late teens, and then it went away. It was always around my birthday, and it was always the same way. And it also, um, my mom would tell me about. I had a sister. She passed away a couple of years ago, but she was 7.5 years older than me. And my sister, when I was a kid, would get into trouble. She was a little bit of a tomboy. My mom would have these premonitions or visions. Like one time, my sister was at this stop and go, and she was like messing around, or it's like a little convenience store, and because it was through the woods from the old house and on Long Island, and she broke all these pickle jars. And my mom was washing dishes at the time, and she saw this vision of my sister, glass breaking, crying. And then back then, there's no internet, so it was the landline. She called up there. We knew the guy, the shop owner, and he's like, "Yeah, your daughter's here, and you broke all these pickle. Everything's okay. She's okay." But my mom would tell me about these visions she would get. Little did I know, I started having the same kind of things that were happening. So at the time, I thought things were normal until I started talking with friends, and they're like, "What are you talking about? That sounds crazy. Like, what are you talking? No one has vision." And I said, "Okay." So then I would keep to myself about that until I met my best friend, still today, Doug, from Long Island, New York. When I eventually moved back during the high school years, I lived in New York with my father before he went to the Carolinas. And then during high school, I was on my own. I had my own apartment. I was working at a restaurant, and I was going to high school. And he was sharing with me all the strange experiences he would be having. And little did I know, our whole life, he lived down the same road from me, but we never met. It was like a mile down Boyle Road. And when we first met, because he also gets contact, but it's very limited. Well, and they also, well, we'll go into that later, but they the weird part about it is it's like we knew each other right when we first met. And I know there are people out there who say, they're twins or there's best friends, and people say finish each other's sentences and things of that nature. But it was to the point of extreme oddities that we knew something else was going on. For one instance, we went to his house one time, and after school, his door was locked in his bedroom. We had no idea why his door would ever be locked. His dad was a correctional officer. No one else lived there. So, okay, that's weird. So when we went to go open it, we couldn't open it. And then when we actually had to hit the door in, like he's like a bodybuilder. He just knocked it right over. But when we started picking up the pieces, the nails from the door frame were red hot. I mean, we got burnt picking them up. His closet light was on. So there's like a lot of weird stuff was happening, but we didn't say, "Oh, that's contact," or "we're getting messages," or anything like that. It was just a lot of weird phenomena. One time we saw a fireball. And I mean, when I say a fireball, it wasn't like a shooting star. We were coming home from work. We were in our early 20s. It was in the middle of the night. We were actually living in the Carolinas. He moved down here for a while. We're in the middle of this town called Hempstead, and it's country. So we get home, and we're coming up from the vehicle, and we had like a little. I mean, we're like best friends. Well, I mean, we are best friends, but it's almost like a couple. We're not but we're best friends. So we get into arguments. Things happen. So I'm going up to the house, and I'm just like, I had enough with him today. It was like around midnight, and he's like, "Alex, Alex," and I said, "What?" And then he goes, "Alex." And now, granted, my father's place, while we were staying there until we got our own apartment, um, his driveway, I mean, it takes about a good minute to walk up it and then go up the steps and get. So I'm at the door already. He's been calling me this whole time. I turn around, and in the sky, I see, if you held up your hand like this, a fireball going horizontally, but going slow. I come down the steps, I come down the driveway, and I go next to him. I go, what? And then immediately, the only thing I could think of in my brain was like a plane blowing up, because it was so big and I could see the chunks of things, and there was this weird sound. And my brain at the time couldn't comprehend what I was looking at. I didn't think shooting star or fireball. I was just like, whoa, that's a plane blowing up or something of that nature, because it was that big. But what's weird is it took, so the time I got down there, it's only halfway through the horizon of the sky, and it's still got another. We watched that thing go towards the ocean. So then we're like talking, we're like, if that thing is going that slow, that has to mean it's so far away, it's so big that it has to be going so fast. So we're like just like dumbstruck. And then we're like, well, if that thing's going to hit the ocean, that's going to create a wave. It's got to. That thing is huge. So we go on. My dad didn't have internet. He had what was it? What was it called? It was called Web TV. I don't know if you ever heard of that. So we're like typing, and sure enough, there was a sheriff report of seeing the same thing that we saw at the same, in Hempstead. And it was so a bunch of weird things that continuously happened all the way up until 2013 is when I started getting on my electronics. There was some on TVs, radio, but on my the first cell phone device, communications that were getting overridden. And I really thought for a good year in 2013 that someone was messing with me, playing a prank, and I was actually really partly mad, and I was partly upset that why is this happening? I'm going to find out who this is, that kind of stuff. But as the years went by, and I really realized what I was dealing with, because I'm getting information that before it happens, I'm getting images, or I'm having a ship come over me and they're taking an image of me from above, and I'm taking an image from them from the ground, and I'm getting that in real time as I'm getting messages. The I At around 2015, because it was such madness with all this, I started documenting date. I would, like, for example, I would do like I just recently got messages Saturday, September 24th, 2022, 3:43 p.m. and the code or whatever that came in, or the Latin or the language or whatever it is, and then we document it. And over the years, I've gone and I've met many people, and I research. I have so many books. I research. I meet authors. I meet researchers, and eventually, I built a team up of people I could trust, that are loyal, that I know are going to. They help me not be biased, whatever the data says, so we can dissect and break down the language or the code, and then we can put it into an order. So to me, it's a historical document. That's how I look at it. So manuscript after manuscript after manuscript of collecting this data, I'm at the point where it's so there's such a larger picture going on, and it's really not to induce fear, but there is some moments where, especially personal moments, where they tell me things that it you have to get through it. You have to, because we're in a point in history of, like, basically what it boils down to is we go through these cataclysmic cycles, and we're at the end of another one of those. And all this kind of stuff happens before, it's happening now, and basically there's a war out there. And I get contact from all sides. So I get contact from dark to light and races and um, I don't know what you believe or whoever believes that's watching this, but angels are real, fallen angels are real, dragons are real, extraterrestrials, interdimensionals are real, terrestrial agencies that mess with people or give disinformation, along with secret space programs, and that's all real. It's all intertwined, and that's the biggest message I tell people is everything is intertwined, and a lot of people will get contact, or it's like from one race or a ship, or I guess the blessing is I get contact from all sides, so I can see it. I get a better picture of it. Um, doesn't mean that I'm anybody special, even though they say I'm a Lyran prince. They say I come from the house of Nicholas from Lyra. Um, it doesn't that I'm you know I don't have craft. I don't have gold stacked up. I don't. It, if that's what they call me, that's okay, Nicholas of Lyra. But here I'm Alex. I'm a person. I have emotions. I have feelings. Um, I've been taught over the years to conquer fear and work on faith. And um, they say that I have codes in me that affect gates that can open and close. Everything I think, say, or speak or see is known and it's written. And depending on what, or even my emotional state, can affect things out there. This is what I'm told. And bad things can happen or good things can happen. And I'm trying to summarize this all up really, because there's just so much data. Like I was telling you earlier, we could be on here for days going over things, and that's what my team and I do. I have every day from 8:30 in the morning until about 11:30 in the morning. We have to fine tune translations or go over the data. So when we publish, that is as accurate as we could possibly do it with the means that we have to do it, because I believe truly in my heart that is historical documents. And so this is what we this is what I got to deal with.
Let's talk about the when you were being you talked about your cell phone being hacked or
Yep.
worked with. What exactly happened?
Okay, so what exactly happens is when it started in 2013, I'd be outside, say with my wife or whoever. All of a sudden, my device will ping like a text message, or it will start acting funky. And then binary code, sometimes it's 4 digits, sometimes it's 6 digits, sometimes it's 9 digits, like where a phone number would be. Sometimes is a phone number. Sometimes it's code or weird symbols that we can't decipher. Well, that will go off, and I'll go, okay, I'm getting a message. What's this? And then it'll be in Latin, it'll be an image, or the best case scenario is when you have a ball of light come right over your house, stop, someone's witnessing it with you, a message is happening, all these things are happening at the same time. Because that's my biggest thing, is especially like with the data that I get that tells the future. I mean, if someone's pranking you or messing with you, or intelligence agencies, which we have some intelligence agencies, and I know who they are, and we have it where they have given disinformation, we can prove that. But how do you do? It's not a drone. It's not how do you have balls of light? How do you know the future? How do you know it to such degree that, for example, September of 2018, I received coordinates off the coast of Madagascar. If you go look in the news in November of 2018, it's documented from that location, the earth rang like a bell from seismic activity. And the scientists don't understand why, and why is it stemming from that Madagascar. I have also the same time documentation from a coordinates that a hurricane that wasn't even formed yet off of Africa was gonna hit directly where I lived. All the trees came down. We actually left because contact told me the trees fell around the house. So luckily the house wasn't destroyed, the old house that we had. Um, but they gave me the exact where it was coming from, and they told me to leave,
Mm,
and I had to take my whole family. So, how do you know the future? How do you
yeah.
know it's that accurate? Okay, so someone could say, well, if it's intelligence, for whatever reason, they do and can control weather, right? Okay, I'll give you that. And maybe they also did in control and they do the earthquake that made the earth ring like a bell. But we're talking about why am I getting the data? And why are they telling me this? If all this is, you know what I mean? It gets to a point where I don't know how we're controlling plasma balls over my house. So if
Okay.
someone can tell me
So those taken photos, who were they?
if taking photos
I think,
of
yeah, I think someone was taking photos of you. I think.
oh yeah, so I have tons of images. So I probably about have from contact, I probably have about 200 to 300 images and in great detail from literally over me, literally from space, other worlds, other but at the same time, I take pictures of them with my because with a phone or a camera you can get pretty good. We've gotten somewhere we get a clear shot of a triangle or a boomerang or an orange ball of light or we get it on video. One time on 2 years ago, the 4th of July block party here in my neighborhood. I'm with two of my friends. They know about my experiences and 3 or 4 of these orange balls come right up over us. Now there's hundreds of people out there by the lake. We're about to shoot off fireworks. Everyone's having a barbecue. It's the whole block, right? Couple, well, 3 blocks, 4 blocks, but it's all together. It's a new neighborhood. They came over, and then I started getting messages, and we have it on film. Like they're just sitting there watching, and they say I'm always protected. Usually they're in threes. Um, some of them are light ships. But yes, they take images. They also have images that almost look fake. And over this summer, when I was in the Yucatan in the jungle and I was exploring, I was kind of taking a break and I was like, I'm gonna write another book called Contacting Yucatan. And I want to kind of explore Mayan culture and do things. So I was there, I was looking at stuff, and I didn't even know if I was going to get contact. Well, I did, and they were telling me that some of these images, besides the ones that are planets and moons and ships that they're sharing with me, some of these images are interdimensional realities that have or haven't happened because they told me that there is no time and everything's happening simultaneously. So some of these realities didn't come to pass or have come to pass. And because we have free will, I guess it changes timelines up until a point. I guess it doesn't change the whole big thing, but it changes it. It can change enough. So yeah, I now they say it breaks law 18 sharing. Now I have entities and beings that I do have images of. They state it break because there's cosmic law and there's like galactic law. They say sharing images of beings is breaking law 18. Now I asked, what is law 18? They said, you know what it is. I say, no, I don't. Come to find out, when you come to the earth because of the electromagnetic sphere, uh, you don't recall. But when you leave, you'll recall everything. And then it triggered something. I'm like, well, what about abductees, right? Maybe that's why they can't remember because they take them out and then they come back and they're like, and they have to do a regression. So they're teaching me. They taught me a lot of stuff. They taught me. I was just talking on the last show. They taught me about how the oceans are stocked. They tell me about things about um, the big debate about the egg and the sperm and whether that's a put politics aside, put everything that you believe aside. But what contact says, as soon as that happens, that's when that is a being. Many strange historical, and that's why I research. I'm like looking for a connection. So what I do is when I get a book, I highlight in it, and I'm like, wow, I got something. All right, and I get on the phone with my team, and we're going, okay, let's go talk about this. What it could be biblical, it could be, um, um, from ancient civilization, mythology. We've come to find out a lot of the beings and these deities are still alive. And not only that, they have many names and throughout the ages. And you have extraterrestrials, and there's kingdoms out there, and you have kingdoms on the earth. And they say it's basically, it boils down to this: it's Christos, anti-Christos, or third party, which are the insectoids, where like I've had a few instances where I've had an insectorian queen contact, and from the colonies of Cremona, it's a moon, and she said she needed a Lyran prince. So I was like, why are all these guys contacting me? Why is this all happening? Why do they need a Lyran prince? Over the years, we've uncovered that I have a code, and it literally affects gates. I know this sounds nuts. Stargates, opening and closing them. And then I was sent here for a purpose, which some of it we're still trying to uncover. But all these races and sides and fallen angels, real angels, all that, extraterrestrials, and they're all interacting with me, trying to pull like a tug of war me on this path that we're on. And sometimes it can get real scary, man. It can get to the point where the bad guys, or which I call the bad guys, they'll lie. They'll tell you truths with a little bit of lie to get you unnerved or have fear. And like one of the recent ones, they were like, "Oh, you're already locked in. Your soul is with us when you perish. There's no coming back from that." And then the other side was like, "No, you still have time. Nothing's set in stone yet, but there is a short amount of time, because like they literally said, we are an end of days." How long is end of days? Is it, you know, I I have a guess, but I'm not. It's not tomorrow. I know that, but it's we're in it. We're in this end of an age, new earth, the final battle of kings. They call it. They call it the great war that's going to come to the surface. I'm not trying to fear monger, because a lot of people say I don't consent, or the Palladians are going to come and save us, or this and that. And I'm just telling you, it's not what the bad guys haven't even really, like, we know of bad guys terrestrially on this world, but they have not, the ones from out there have not really publicly shown themselves to the world yet. And everyone's going to believe that they're good guys when they first arrive, and it's actually going to be the bad guys. The good guys come in at the end. And the other thing I wanted to tell you was, if you want to learn about anything terrestrially, that's why I wanted to put out the Adepts of Deceit, DECEIT, Behind Closed Doors. I have it on Amazon Kindle. My mother and I, we worked on these works way long ago, and there's a lot of future proofs past in these from way back. So the first one's out. The second one will be out next month. And then the third book will be Contact itself, my from 2013, 2014 going forward to the present. We're going to do as much as we can before things go sideways, or I'm shut down, or I'm stopped. They say I'm protected, but I just have to take it day by day, and I have to live a normal life too. Like, I have 3 sons, and you get used to, you have to, the way you stay sane is you have to have routines. And so a typical day, like we're talking right now, my plan after the show, I'm going to make dinner for the family. I cook. But if I get pelted with contact or stuff starts happening, it's like you just shift the gear. and I'll automatically get my team on the board. We'll start photographing, we'll start documenting, and then I have to adjust. And it's just been like that day in, day out for years and years. So sorry for rambling, but I know it's a lot of stuff. Well,
Yeah.
like I said, we could talk for days.
Now you talked about the queen. Now, a lot of these experiences, are they just telepathic when it
No,
comes to the actual contact?
yeah. So either we see them in person, not the beings. We'll see the ships, the balls of light, the orbs, um, the direct messaging on the devices or overriding electronics, voicemails. We'll get pings. We'll get where they say that they're here, but we can't see them. But they say that they're here, and they even know if like my heart rate's elevated. They know what I could be away from electronics in the woods, and they know exactly what I'm thinking or saying. If I'm, we've tested it with people who are not even into this, go out there and whisper like totally, away from just a test, and they comment exactly what we were talking about, what was being said, and it's to the point where some of that an intelligence agency could do some of that stuff, but some of that stuff, no way, not buying it because we've researched and done everything we possibly can, and I think it has something to do with partly because of who they say I am, and also partly because my wife's uncle was Philip Morrison, and I was telling you about that. He was a team lead under Oppenheimer for the Manhattan Project. He was on MJ-12. He started the SETI program. I saw his writings behind the scenes of what they were talking about. They didn't do it openly talking about extraterrestrials, but privately they knew. They knew what was going on. I think this has been going on. It's not a new phenomenon. I think we've been tinkered and talked with throughout the ages. And this is we're just at what Contact calls the digital age of man, where now we can do platforms or we can do videos and it's a faster connection of data at a highly alarming rate than what you could 30, 40 years ago. And not only that, I believe the rise of sightings and the rise of people who are getting, because we are in this time frame like they're calling for, and something big's coming, and that's where we're at.
Mm. Now, have you ever had out of body experiences, stuff like that? Um,
I've had those dreams like I told you about, and I've also one of the biggest problems with Contact that they have with me is that they say my third eye is partially open, it's not fully open, and they want me to be away from electronics. They want me to fully connect, and they want me, uh, and I haven't. And when you have physical data, is it to me, it's a huge difference than, oh, wait, I'm not channeling. To me, there's a lot of reasons, and number one, it's a form of, to me it's like a form of possession. You could be soul bonding or soul swapping. You're also, if you're not doing those things, you can also be getting data. You can misconstrue it, or miswrite and write things and make a mistake. Everything that we have is the way it is, and the way we can measure it, we can look at it, the team can. So that's why, to me, it's historical, and I don't want to rely on those connections, because also I'm getting light and dark. I don't want to get myself in a situation I can't get out of. A lot of people say, "Oh, envision a bubble around you. You're protected, a shield," and unless you are acting in beyond of ascended master, I I don't think it's wise to be dabbling in something that you're not. You may think that you're really good, but these guys, some of these things out there are thousands and thousands of years old, and they could totally destroy you. They could totally mess with you. So I know my limitations. Um, I do work on certain things, but I know my boundaries because I think it can get dangerous pretty quickly. So
Have you well, since you've had these types of contact, I know the military do tend to scan for this. Have you ever been contacted by them?
yeah, so I want to. Okay, so back in 2015, 2016, I started getting phone calls literally from like weird places in Israel. Um, One time in the middle of the night, I got a call from a Russian embassy. I literally called them right back. I didn't care. And they picked up, they said something, or something like, and I was like, you just called me. And they're like, no, it didn't. And then they hung up, like just like that. And I was like, okay, that's weird. And then we document it. And then all of a sudden, we started having a lot of military like weird flyovers. And we live near an airport, so some of my friends are like, all right, Alex, I understand you getting all this, but they're not flying over you for every. And I'm like, all right, well, then why did they just tell me to turn off all my stuff because they're collecting my data? And who's telling me? So that means there's multiple parties involved. And sure enough, an AWACS with the dish on top and another intelligence plane, like literally right over my two-story house.
Oh,
They just circle and circle. So they've been
yeah.
doing that here. They've had a contract here for years in Wilmington, North Carolina. And people are actually complaining because of the noise and the weird times that they're doing more than what they're supposed to be in their contract doing. And I'm sure part of besides going over the ocean and doing other things and intelligence ships out there, not just about me, but because of national security and stuff. But I know that they're collecting. I mean, I have third parties giving me data before they arrive 20 seconds and they're already in the air, like heads up, they're coming in. And they also have taken code from me. And they speak in plain English. There's no like, what is this, a code? Or is this, they're like, we have been watching you for some time. We allow you to have these communications and what I'll do is let me just share you recent terrestrial contact. Um, and you can get a taste of, and sometimes it's a little vicious back and forth of what they have said. Yeah, let me pull that up. So one, that was a week ago or 2 weeks ago. Let me pull that up. All right. Um, Here we go. Let's see, one terrestrial agent line on September 7th, 2022, September 7th. It was a Wednesday at 11:54 a.m. This is, I don't know what intelligence agency this is, but it's definitely terrestrial. Representation denied further as site assistance returned and alter communications over. And I'm like, what? What are they talking about? I said, why is representation denied? Please explain in more detail. Because I ask questions back too. So, and they'll respond. I said, you never confirmed who you represent. Earlier communication from you was about the Lionsgate. And they said, we can no longer assist you at 12:13 p.m. on Wednesday, September 7th. I said, why? At least give me the courtesy of explaining why you can no longer assist me. And they said Wednesday, September 7th at 12:15 p.m. Violation to share sensitive material. That's a small, that's okay. That's just a taste, right? But now let me share you some nasty recent contact from terrestrial agents where they say basically, I'll just read it for you. I'll read you just a little end portion of it. Wednesday, September 14th at 12:53 p.m. They said the works are incomplete. They were trying to snatch one of my codes from 2014 or 2015, a code that we couldn't decipher. And what it came down to is the intelligence agency, because you ever get a message and then it says view more and you have to click on that. Well, that code has been on an old device and there's no power to it. But we were able to go into it to expand it. And as soon as I did that, they were able to take it. They were saying the works are incomplete. And then I said from 2018, oh, it was from 2018. And then I said, I have the codes. Please verify yourself before I transmit. Because there is an alliance. There are light and dark. I want to help the light, but I also don't want to be tricked because I have sensitive data. So I said, I wanted a verification of who I'm speaking with. And then they said, verify yourself at 1:11 p.m. And a lot of my messages come in around the 11th hour, 11:11, 1:11. It's weird. I said, you contacted me. You know who I am. Who are you? And they said, you are dismissed. It's not extraterrestrial. This is terrestrial agent. I said, it would be irresponsible just to hand over codes and sensitive data without verification. And then they said, they have been received. They have been received. Thank you. Because that means they took it. They stole it. I said, so you got the codes anyway. How is this a mutual arrangement? It seems to be only in your benefit without telling me details. And this is what they said to me. You listen to this. We allow you to continue receiving communications and continue your work. That is the benefit. And then they gave me a code of like their signature. And then that's it. They bopped out. So what's happening is these terrestrial agents from around the world, they know I'm getting communications and flyovers and crazy stuff is happening almost on a daily basis, to the point where not only are they sending planes over me, not only are they contacting me, they're stealing my data. They're doing everything they can to collect this stuff off of me as fast as I'm getting, because it's intelligence for them. And I'm sure it's because of national security or whatever, because you have things out there making contact and they know who I am.
They do. I know once a few years ago, we were invited to a C5 place, a UFO hotspot. And a professor that used to work with David Jacobs was there, and a police officer and researchers and stuff like that. And so we were doing a C5. And around 11:11, something happened. A triangle UFO appeared on the horizon within a minute, maybe less. It was over a house. Triangle UFO, 3 white dots forming the triangle and a huge red circle in the middle. But we were hearing afterburners. So that was probably a TR3B or something close to it. And so they were reading our like to and fro emails, so they knew we were coming. So it's they're everywhere. Really.
We had one here in my backyard. It was so low that how I describe it is, I didn't have first off, I know it was terrestrial because I can tell the difference now. I've been doing this so long. I've seen, like I said, if you came to my house and you hung out for the weekend, we'd see so much stuff and so much would happen. But anyways, so this triangle craft right over the tree comes right over my backyard. Now my kids are out playing the Nintendo and I had all the blinds still open, and I got a cool fenced in backyard and torches, like those solar panel. So I see this thing coming over, and I go, oh crap, it's terrestrial. But when it got over me, what I felt was, like you said, afterburner. But what I felt was like the only thing I could describe it as is when you pop a soda can and you put it up to your face and you feel that fizzy pop. That's how it was feeling all over my body. And I made sure to look at the time, and I looked at my sons who weren't even paying attention. They were playing Nintendo, and I knew I didn't have loss of time because the time wasn't changed, and I knew, but that sensation of that, and it felt like boom, 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 and the fizzy pop. And it just slowly went over me, and they were just letting me know. I think they were just either they were trying to scare me, or they were collecting my data again in a different way, or but they were kind of like when they said like verify yourself, that's like saying go F yourself. You know what I mean? Um, they're
How big
very,
was it? How big was it?
I'd say, and think about that. I mean, my tree's right there. It had to be, it had to be about 40 or 50 feet wide.
Okay, makes sense.
And it had a bunch of them behind it. It was like a fleet. And then there were like helicopters, or I don't know if they were helicopters because I didn't hear any helicopters. Or maybe drones, but they were on the outskirts of this fleet, and there was like six of them, and it was, and I really got to the point where I was feeling so that boom 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 and the fizzy pop. I was trying to, and I what I did, I got some of it on record of them coming, and then literally, I don't to this day I don't understand it. I never stopped rolling. I never stopped. But there's a clear cut where it goes orange and white. The whole screen goes white, and then it comes back on as you see the tail end of them leaving. And that had to be right when they were over me and that boom 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 and that fizzy pop, and it must have messed up
Yeah.
the when as it happened. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy stuff, man.
Well, let's talk about well, some of the photos you might have taken in the past.
Yeah, so I mean, for instant gratification, those who are done with this show, when they're done with it, you can go to the lyranconnection.com, which will take you to my Facebook. And I'm not a big techie kind of guy, so I have a team and stuff to help me. But there's a ton of images and videos I've already put on there. And I'm going to be honest with you, from what if you were here in my study, this wraps around, and I have so many images. I have them not secretly, but I have a secure way of having them processed and sent to me in tubes and stuff. But when you're looking through a video, it kind of makes the thing look a little smaller and farther away when you're filming something or taking a picture than when you see in real life with your own eyes. But some of the images we've had blown up, and you can see, I mean, you could definitely see this like a boomerang, or it's a triangle, or it's this or that. But yeah, you guys can see that on the Lyran Connection. And then I'm gonna also, for you, I'll give you some cool stuff to where you can post, I guess in post that you can put out for everyone to see. But yeah, it's pretty intense. But what was your question? I'm sorry.
Well, let's get into the you talked about your Scottish bloodline earlier
Oh
on.
yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay,
So,
so
yeah,
yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, but what's it? How is it important to you?
Well, before I was even told by contact, like this amazing story of, and it's from all sides that are telling me the same thing. That's what makes me even, but I've always been in a fascination since I was a kid about history. I had this yearning for anything rich in history or my roots, or I just felt like I want to know more. I want to see homelands of where I don't know what I was drawn to, and not just the nostalgia of like knights and shining armor and all this stuff, but I wanted to know, how did we get to here? What is the history? This is before I knew anything about contact or even knew that I could be from off world or something. And so some of people in my family were very much like that. My dad's mom, who I called Grammy, and she was born in the late 1800s, 1898 or something like that. And she would tell me stories when I was a little boy. She used to call me Alexander the Great. And she would tell me stories. And she passed when I was young, probably like 10 or 12. Um, and she would tell me stories about from World War II and World War One, and she would tell about rich histories and of our family and ship captains, and I was always fascinated by these stories. As she used to smoke a lot in the house and play solitaire and watch Days of Our Lives and all that, and she'd be like, "Shunny, I tell you about the back when there was before cars when we had the the horseback, and I paid a penny for this and 3 cents for this. And I was like, whoa, what? And she would go through like old black and white photos and tell me. And I wish that's the only thing I could, if I could tell anyone out there, if you are having any experience where you're with an older person of like elderly, and they're literally teaching you, like, try to absorb all that you can, because once it's gone, it's gone. So my uncle, who's he's pretty, you know, well for himself, but he went to Scotland. We still have family over there. He did so much research, and it goes all the way back to the 1300s. It goes back to, I guess at one point our family were protectors and also advisors to the Rose clan and the clan of Ross, and they had salt mines. I guess they had things against the British, and it's a whole long, you know. So I always found things like that fascinating. And my grandfather came to America in the 1930s with my Grammy, and he was from Scotland. He was a carpenter. Actually, I have one of his literally right here, like this, and this is literally I don't know if you can actually see that, but this is his original diary from like 1920, and along with his works. And he literally built the house on Long Island that my dad grew up. He died when my dad was like 9 years old. And my dad wind up taking care of my Grammy, and my Grammy never remarried. She stayed in that house. And I eventually left where I was born and lived when I was and eventually my dad moved to the Carolinas. But history to me is important. Um, I have so many books because I'm always, and in Contact has told me most of the works on the planet are polluted, or there's like truths mixed with, and that's what I'm coming to find out. There's like a golden nugget, and then I'm like, well, that doesn't match what they just told me. Maybe they're telling me some disinformation, but then maybe this author, so then I have to try to contact that author and then see where they got that information, or, you know, it's a whole puzzle, man.
Had
So
anything out of the ordinary happen to you, like paranormal stuff?
yeah, I mean, from lights flickering to like I said, orbs and ships to I've been told by Contact we've walked in front of you many times through your life, and you've gone off world and come back without knowing it and
Oh,
remembering it.
okay.
And it makes me remember when I was with Doug when I was a teenager. One time, true story. This guy, his name was Michael. He literally, we met him because we knew this one girl. She was going into the Marine Corps. This guy was like almost 7 feet tall. He had long, pin straight hair. He had crystal blue eyes. He was Caucasian. He didn't say a word. He he put his hand on her shoulder and had her stop, and he said, "His aura is good. His aura is bad." He was pointing to Doug, and he's like, "You can go with him, but not him." And that's all he said. And at the to be honest with you, man, maybe he was just a really, really amazing, gifted, strange human, or he was maybe one of the ones that they've talked about in my contact where they've come in front of me many times to kind of either if they're guiding me or they're, I don't know. So I have
Wow.
questions where things have happened where I'm like, well, maybe that was an alien.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
ever seen Shadow People?
No, but Doug has. I don't. He gets more dark stuff. I get more light stuff. He sees that stuff. He's even got one on video where he's making fun of me because we're best friends. So he's like, "Oh, Alex, an alien's coming, whatever," just joking around. And sure enough, when he was doing the video, because he doesn't want, he wants to be anonymous about where he works, but he works security. Let's just put it that way for an important thing. And when he was like filming, making a joke to me, you saw like looks like three little shadow like run across the screen like real quick, and I'm like, whoa, dude. He's like, I was like, did you see that? And he's like, that was like 7 or 8 years ago. And from this day, that's a big one. But yeah, so he's seen them. I haven't. I've seen them on video. I haven't seen them in person. So,
You talked about angelics earlier. Now,
mhm.
how do you know they're angelic?
Well, literally, when you start to go through some of the context of the data, not only do they speak what you would think is like biblical or historical or like in that ye and thou and that type of thing, but they literally say angels. They'll be like one of the recent messages says that, um, and this was from the bad guys, but I'll pull that up and I'll tell you exactly what they said about angels when the bad guys were trying to scare me and say that basically my soul was like screwed. And um they said, um uh they were talking about the angels and how they like everything is written, and that I'm pulling this up. Okay, here it is. The council judged 9 years before the reign of the times, the faith between the kingdoms until a new age. Hence, as a soldier and a prince, we are able to control our strength and powers. The judgment chosen by the angels is silent and not written in the history of the earth. So that's just one segment, and that's from September 22nd this year, 4:25 p.m. This is actually from a fallen angel line that is actually trying to scare me, saying that I was pretty much my soul is damned, and they were installing fear, trying to, because I had who are the Galactics. So the Lyrans have is kind of like a cradle of life. I don't know if you've known other contactees, or there are kingdoms, houses. Like I'm from the house of Nicholas, but there are many houses, and you have different like humans like that look like us. You have cat, half human, which are, and they're in a secret system. Their special force line is called the Galverics, and they come rushing to our system when I'm in need. Like when I got scared the other day a little bit from this Mammon, Aver Mammon, which means Aver is the servant of the afterlife of Mammon, which is one of the seven princes of hell. So I was like, whoa, what are we dealing with? And they were trying to scare me. I was like, I need assistance. And there's like, speak to us. And that they were already en route. And then it gave me an image of them entering our system, like from the system to our system. And they basically said, well, there's basically saying there are some truths in that, but there are also some not truths. You still have time, but you have to have your soul aligned at the you because we have free will. Basically, you have to have your soul aligned, and we can't. Basically, they said we can't. Like I'm already getting out of game information, so to speak. Well, no, I literally am. But if they give me any more, their fate will be the same as mine. So they're helping me to the point, but you have to do it. And then once you're locked in, then you're golden. But pretty much, I'm getting out of game information, and that's stressful in itself because. And that night when those bad guys were contacting me, that's that latest orange ball. That's why I know it was an interdimensional. So that was one of there was either a fallen angel or the messenger of, and it stopped and it came over the house. So yeah, man, it's a fluid war. It's about our souls, and it's very biblical. It's more than it ties in with Anunnaki. It ties in with all these star systems and races and empires and kingdoms. And I'm just getting because I get all these different sides, and because they say I'm a prince, I think I get more of I'm a little bit different from everyone else. I can't find someone like me because I'm dealing with political affairs and kingdoms out there and on the earth. Because in the beginning, I used to say, well, what about this? And what about this person terrestrially, about like regular people, like good guys, bad guys on the planet, because this planet's controlled by dark forces. But the they said, enough of the nations, these things will come upon thee, and blah, blah, blah. So it goes right into politics. It goes right into out there. And they're like, basically, enough with terrestrials. Like, listen to what we have to tell you because your life depends on it.
Now, do
Kind of
you
stuff.
know, like what races really you're in contact with?
So I have a black ledger. So what I do is when I haven't entered any kind of thing in the last 3 weeks, because I do it about once a month. I do my update. I can tell you like how many messages I received for what month, what year. But what I do is the team and we've come up with like say names, systems, planets and moons, ships and fleets, constellations, races, councils. I have one team member who actually tracks messages and based upon seasons of like when light and dark contact is, they're tracking it astrologically and like getting apex messages, so like of a star or a system where we go, we've had 39 messages from this at this time. So some names, systems, races. So these, I'll tell you races. That's your question. How
Yeah.
many different races? So we've had from Anunnaki, some race called the Great Race, Galvarics, Arcturian, Giants, Palladian, Insectoid, uh, Reptilian, Lyran, Elohim, Rish, Deep Black Insectoid, Ashtar, um, Commando Insectoid. Only had it one time. Something called the Gods of Time, lowercase g, the Gelvenetics, Insectivorian Spectoid Gray and Dark Gray Clone, Cremolian, Versian, Venusanier. See, some of these names are not even matching with regular contact. Zeltishi,
Yeah.
Xenobor Pergrions, Sakaar, the Race of the Dragon, Lions, Triferians, Recticilian Gray. So sometimes I get like a scientific, like you would say, like in like the animal kingdom, when you went to class, they'll give you some of them will be in that, like they said, we're not originally from here. That the rep the this rest Reticilian Gray was the actual first inhabitant of this world. This is actually their world, and that's what I was told. Um, so I have all these, so you see, these are just races. Not We're not talking about the kingdoms and the fleets and it's all very fluid, man. Fluid enough to where you have terrestrial agents taking your stuff or messing with you because they're getting alive as it happens. You know, you want to know some names? So here's some names. Here's what tripped me out the most, because as I'm doing research and I love history and I'm going back and I'm like, you're finding out mythology isn't really mythology. It's like stuff that really happened. But here's some really heavy hitting names that either I have had direct contact from or we've had interaction with. So some names are like Anu, Enlil, Ningizida, Thor, Val, Valiant, Enlil, Shayu, Hor, Orin, Lissa, Apollyon, um, Zeofrek of Adaya, Ahim, Kamala Mitka, Nur, Emperor, Grama, Vrilon. So that stuff's real. When like that television broadcast where they say it might have been a hoax, but they're not sure.
Oh yeah.
That Vrilon stuff in Grama, that's real stuff. Varsisi, Johanna, Saint Cosmo, King of Lagash, King Sargon, Krinabarg, Orton, Illuminia, Chief Z, Commander Foy. Like I'm just King Flaffle. Like I'm rattling off names, but these are real, like long interactions, rich detail, data. So yeah, man. So we chart everything, and then like another thing is so like on here, I'm like, okay, for 2022 and 2021, 2021, we had 518 total transmissions. Whether they were code, images, whatever they were, we have it documented. 2022, it's been a little bit of a slow start. January, we had none. February, we had 2. March, we had 8. April, 6. May was a big one, 44. June, 26. And then it dropped to July, it was nothing. And then August was 7. And then currently for September, I know we're at, because I chart that, I know we're like 40 or 50 messages already. Like we're bouncing. And usually in September going through to December, messages will go on the rise and it'll be like dark. It'll be like a lot more dark where Orion, Draco, Hydrus, Taurus, all these different constellations, because we figured out based upon the time frame, there's limited amount of time of when you can communicate, and it cycles and it repeats, and that's what we're finding based on the data. And the team is very diligent about fine tuning and going through that. So I know
Wow.
I'm like throwing a ton of information at you.
Yeah. Now, how do you feel about all this, getting this type of info?
My biggest question, I just said it on the other show. The biggest thing I say to myself is, I tell my team all the time, I don't know how I'm not crazy from all this or locked up or I'm still alive. They say I'm protected, but I always kind of knew that there was more to life than what we're kind of in this. And I guess I get to experience it a little bit. So that is the blessing and the curse. Even if they say I'm a prince or whatever, here I'm, like I said, I'm Alex. Um, I'm getting out of game information. And you know what? I've learned with such phenomenal, but whether it's in person or whatever, however it happens, it's like anything else, man. You realize real quick, you get not desensitized so much as you get used to it. You really do. Because sometimes you think about these great wars or some of the things, how do these guys go? You must get to the point just like that. You get so desensitized or you get so used to what is happening that it becomes normal. And I guess that's I have to balance my life of like my family, they're not into any of this stuff. They're kind of like they're interested to know what's going on, but they've witnessed so much that they're like, this is too much for me. But I respect what's happening with you, but we support you. Um, we know it's real, but we're just gonna let you handle it because you're the head of the house or whatever. But my kid, it's not a big deal. It's an everyday occurrence, something weird or something happening. I guess that is, how am I handling it? I'm always looking for, like I said on the other show too, I'm looking for a good linguist because language and code, people we can trust, and I'm always looking for real loyal, good-hearted people that are of like the light that are there's because we don't have time for games or it's so much data that we just don't there's not enough hours in the day to go through it all. And like knowing that these intelligence agencies are allowing me to continue my work or collect data or having communications, how long does that go for until they try to do whatever they're going to do? Or um, even in contact, it says that eventually I'm going to get to the point where well, they said I'm on the cusp of educating the world and I need to, but then some of them don't want me and they make threats. Why are you saying, so yeah, it's a humbling experience. It's nerve wracking at some points, but I have to just because I really believe, I don't know what you believe, but I believe in God and I believe there is a King of Kings. And I believe that there are lowercase g gods, a pantheon, and who want, and there are kingdoms. And I believe that there is a war. And based on the data, somehow I'm smacked as a little part in a bigger picture right in the middle of all this. And I'm just happen to be getting out of game information. And usually the ones who get the craziest stuff are probably the ones you at least are going to probably hear about because not making $1 million off of any of this. This isn't paying my bills. I am getting publication and printing done for the historical record. I'm even going to put it in a place that if there is a cataclysm, maybe they dig it up and they find it and they crack open and they find, and they're going to be like, whoa, something was happening here. And maybe it can help in the future. So I know my time, I've been told my time is going to be short on this. I know I don't have much. Some of the images I've received are of myself in the future that I look a little bit older, but it doesn't look like I'm going to be around much longer. And I'm told I won't be around much longer. So maybe 9 years, 8 years. I don't know how long I'm going to be here. So that's humbling too. So, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You got to just keep every day at it. As long as I stay current and don't fall behind in translating and working with the team and keeping current contact, I guess that's where I get my most distress. If there's I get contact and then I rarely just skip a day and I'll get to it. If it starts to build up, I'll get anxiety because I feel like, because when I scribe too, kind of give you an example. This will be a good one. So I don't share some sensitive information, but I literally, when I scribe as is, as like the Latin that came in or the language. And then but I want it to be for the record. So I'm an amateur. I'm not a scientist. I guess I'm a published author and all this, but I always think of myself as not like the best of something. So I'm doing the best I can. I want all the S's to look, I want it to look cool, but it's also historic. So you see these historic documents and you're like, wow, look at the handwriting they had back then. And then I'm like, I can't do that, but I'm going to do the best that I can. That's my style. And I think I'm doing good works, by documenting and sharing this information, even though I get a lot of flack. So I hope I answered your question. I'm not as real as you're going to come with the real stuff. Because I meet some people that they're just, I don't know if they're getting information from others and I'm not here to point fingers, but even contact is talked about certain individuals, but they call it crimes against humanity. They literally, because you're lying to the people, and that is like a big no-no, or like a cosmic law. But if you're knowingly saying anything that is not true, and you're just trying to, I don't know if you're trying to sell a book or whatever you're trying to do, that to me is an atrocity. And I guess it's viewed out there as the same thing. I'm not perfect. We may have mistakes in here, but we're doing everything we can to preserve what we have, for humanity, for the documentation. No one, when this is published, no one's going to have anything like this out there. I have never. I'm looking. The closest I've seen is I got this from when they did those 1,200 copies from the British Museum of Dr. John Dee's full, and he was messing with, but he wasn't getting light contact. He was getting straight up fallen angel contact, like straight up. He was drunk every night, and he was getting those straight up messages, and yeah, that's some talk about getting contact. And it was the Latin, it was the whole 9 yards, but he was getting straight up dark contact, portraying as the light. I'm just fortunate to get all sides to be able to see through the fog. And that's another thing. A lot of people are getting contact and they're just like, well, they're great, they're good. Well, maybe they are, maybe they're not. What do you measure to see what is or isn't? What are they talking about politically within those kingdoms, and what's going on to make, and that's what makes me nervous, because sometimes I can get fooled for a minute, and even with all the diversity of where we're like, oh, okay, we got a good one here, and then it's like, oh, that was bad. I just got through.
Crazy.
We noticed the pattern though. A lot of the ones who do not state who they are, straight up, are usually not good. Like straight up. when you get near the top of the echelon of certain kingdoms, even the bad guys will state who they are, though. They'll be like, I got this one from Azazel, which is a fallen angel.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He said, I am over the 11 pillars of the moon and this, that, like this long, like you would see on a show, like a long title. They make sure they're going to tell their title and who they are. And that's when you know when you're dealing with a messenger, a minion, or you're dealing with the real thing. But yeah, it's real humbling, man. I ain't kidding.
Crazy.
You get it. It's crazy. And the insectoids are third party. They're not with light or dark. They're doing their own thing. For the majority of the insectoids that I've had contact with, they're hive mind. They have a queen. They oh, and they use asteroids too, by the way. They load up in these asteroids and they go through atmospheres, and then it's like a Trojan horse. And then when that thing blows up or cracks apart, some of them die, some of them, and then they get onto the wherever they're trying to invade. They literally control asteroids. Yeah, man.
Prior to recording, you talked about the new Earth. What do you know about that?
I'm told that straight up, this is the end of an age, new age, the final battle of kings. That there will be another 1,000 years. I've even been given blueprints. Some of them say I'm gonna be here for the next 1,000 years, and some of them say I'll never make it to see that. So, and I'm thinking that might be bad guys based upon certain contact. That these are end of days, and we are living in it, and everyone's going to witness soon. But what I try to tell people is, a lot of people believe that all the good guys are going to show up, and all these bad guys terrestrially are going to be, where we still have a bit of a little stretch of really it's bad guys that are showing up, portraying to be good, unifying the world, and continuing to invert and then the real good guys are going to come in, and basically the planet's going to be burned up, and then it'll cataclysm will happen, and the new Earth will get settled and seeded, and then those who are saved and those who get off or survive, or I don't know, that's out of my league. It's out of my I'm only told certain out of game information. And then when you see stuff that's in, like, Revelation or other ancient, you're like, oh my goodness, this is too crazy, because I'm getting another perspective, but in that same kind of dialogue. And I'm not saying I'm anybody or anything, but all I can do is, what are we going to do? I got to document this. I got to talk about it. I got to tell someone. Uh, I mean, there are bases under our ocean. They said they use our oceans for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, and they have bases down there. And this is not like, oh, they just got here. This has been doing this so long. They said they've been tinkering with us for so long.
Wow.
So yeah, man.
You talked about your two books earlier on. Do you want to get into that?
Yeah. So Adepts of Deceit 1 is out on Amazon and Kindle and at the lyranconnection.com, and it's called Behind Closed Doors. Part 1 takes you through terrestrially, pre, during 9/11 and after 9/11. It goes into great detail, and there's a lot of it's almost 600 pages, and it basically breaks down the secret societies. This is back then, back in the days, because the original publication when we did this, my mom's very poor. We can't, we come from, there was no computer. My mom never had a car. My mom was having these visions, and we started to research and put things together, and we at the time it would be considered conspiracy theory, but now with where we are in today's times, everything's pretty much come to fact. So it goes into the Trilateral Commission, it goes into secret societies, it goes into basically this arc of this controlled world, where it leads to book 2, which will be out next month, where it literally talks about their grooming for the Antichrist that they're going to have come back, or they're going to have like a president of the earth, basically, and try to combine this new world order, all this stuff. So you say new world order back in the 90s or late or early 2000s, you'd be like, this conspiracy theory. No one says that. Even up until about 7 years ago, 8 years ago, that would be, you'd have to catch it. But that these books are just as like Contact with book 3, when that comes out, will be highly detailed. These books are 600 pages each, highly detailed with links and charts and who and names, and it really shows how it's an orchestrated plan that's been going on for a long time. I know that sounds crazy, but I'm going to be honest with you. Everything is controlled on this world, down to even say my contact, them interjecting, and everything is watched, everything's controlled. And I'm sure I'm going to get information flack for even doing a show again. Every time I do a show, I get light and dark, that contact. But the bottom line is, Adepts of Deceit is a future proves past 600-page monster, and part 2 next month. And you know what? It's refreshing to see. That's what my wife said too. She said it's refreshing to see that I could see back then when it was tried to be published, like, what do you got? This is nuts. This is crazy. And now you're going to be like, whoa, they were way ahead of their time. And yet again, just like Contact Book 3, I'm way ahead of my time, because when it is out in the open, and I mean open, and that'll be a big deception. They're going to think all these guys are going to be good guys when they're bad guys. But I'm going to have the documentation to show, like, those are bad guys, and another future proves past. So get the book. I'm telling you, it's great, just because eventually, you know, if the power ever goes out and you got to read by candlelight, you might as well have a good book. And that's how I say, I don't get no Kindle and all that. I get all behind me, all my physical books wrapping around, because I want to have that knowledge at my fingertips when I need it. And it's a great book terrestrially on all the workings of what's going on. So if that makes any sense.
Well, thank you again for coming on, brother. It's been fun. So thank you for the information you shared today.
Appreciate it.
So to those who had the pleasure of watching today's interview, hope you enjoyed it. I'm your host, Mr. Great, and I'll see you guys next time. So take care, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Hello, everyone. This is Mr. Great, and thanks for watching today's episode. If you are an abductee, contactee, or experiencer, and you believe that your story could help others, please feel free to contact me through my YouTube channel email. When it comes to experiencers, the ET phenomena, and the future, remember, truth will out.